Welcome back to Maximum Production, a Holstein Friesian New Zealand podcast about everything to do with cows. I'm Amelia, and today we are talking about lameness and how farmers can be more proactive in preventing lameness issues on farm. So joining me today is Stuart Rogers. Stuart is a hoof trimmer based in the Waikato. Stuart has his own hoof trimming business called Hoof It, as well as being the current president of the New Zealand and Australia Hoof Trimmers Association. Welcome, Stuart.
Thank you for having me.
Stuart and I have had lots of conversations in the past about trimming hooves, and I like picking his brain, so I thought he was a perfect person for me to interview. I think lameness is a huge issue on farms in New Zealand, and the most important part about it is that a lot of farmers don't know what they can do on farm that could prevent issues in the future. Before we get started into the extensive list of questions that I always send out, Stuart, do you want to give our listeners a bit of a background on you and how you got to where you are today?
Thanks, Amelia. A little bit about me. I was born in Northern Ireland and basically grew up on a dairy farm. Small dairy farm, about 30, 40 cows compared to New Zealand farms now. But that it always gave me that interest, and it's always been there in the background, which took me then through Ag College. After Ag College, my first taste of New Zealand was 1993. I came here on a OE and did a bit of relief work around the Waikato for an old company called Marvin Farm Services. Some of the old people may remember them, may have had a few Marvins on their staff temporarily. Well, I was one of those, and I enjoyed it. It also gave me that little bit of buzz and a little bit of a yearn for travel around the world. So then did that temporary season here in New Zealand. A bunch of us then bounced across to Perth in Australia, and we did a wee bit on the wheat belt, driving tractors. Then I was home. My OE was for about a year. Did a little bit of work back home on a neighbouring farm, kind of like loosely as a herd manager. Did a lot of milking, looking after stuff. But that was the time of the BSE. It was just starting in the UK. Farming didn't really have much of a back. It was a bit hard, like for young people then to get a future. So I still had that bit of yearn for exploration and travel. So I did something different and joined the UK Armed Forces.
Oh, okay.
That was to get that travel. And took me to all the, let's just say it, the hash holes of the world instead of the nice places. But 10 years later, I left that, and first thing I did was bought a flight back to New Zealand on a working holiday visa. And a little bit older, a little bit wiser, I decided, this is a place to be.
We are a great country, so
and that's why I'm still here. So looking at that, I basically then got a job as a farm manager on a farm outside Tiomuru. I got my residency all in that season. From that, I wanted to start a hoof trimming business. At that time, I saw that there was a need for it here in the Waikato area. There were already hoof trimmers. They were mostly down the South Island, and I saw the opportunity for starting something up here. So, bounced back to the UK, get some training under my belt. At that time, that was working through a company called Embryonics in Cheshire in England under the umbrella of the National Association of Cattle Foot Trimmers, which is one of their hoof trimmer associations in England. I learned basically what we call the 5-step Dutch, the functional method of hoof care, and brought that back with me, which was the basis of starting my hoof trimming business. A few years later, more experienced hoof trimming, I started to realise there's more to hoof trimming than just this one method. So then, I wanted to personal development, learn more. So then I went to Canada a few times to learn a different approach to hoof care. And now I really practice what's called the White Line Atlas method, which is just a different way of interpreting the hoof, reading the hoof, and then trimming to help that cow. And we can do that because here in New Zealand we've got more variation. You got Jerseys, crossbreds, Holsteins, and sometimes you get all three of them in the same herd on the same farm. And this is where this new method and way of interpreting hooves actually is better fitting for my business and my service now. Also a little bit on the sidetrack, I'm now married. My wife is a 50-50 share milker on her parents' farm. We have the herd. We're breeding up to go pedigree. Some of the herds are registered. And breeding that better animal is another key passion that both of us have at home. So that's a little bit about me. So hopefully people have greater understanding of what I say.
You mentioned the 5-point method. Do you just want to explain to the listeners what that method actually means?
Right. The 5-step Dutch method, basically it's 5 steps from when you lift the hoof, and there's 5 ways or points that the trimmer, farmer, farm staff, that they go through. And by and large, it works okay. It is designed for that 550 to 650 kilo cow, and it was first written down probably back in the 1960s or whatever by a guy called Truus Raven, a Dutch fella. Where I found it a little bit wanting was when we start working with small animals and with big animals and with animals that are just outside the norm. And that's where I wanted to do better and wanted to learn more. And with the advent of the internet, that's where I found out, there is other ways of hoof trimming. So that's where I went to Canada to learn the white line atlas method, which is different in the way that we don't take any physical measurements in millimeters anymore. We actually interpret the hoof capsule, and if we read that correctly, that gives us a truer indication where everything is inside, where the pedal bones are, where the corium is, where sole thickness is, and that gives us a truer aid for helping that cow on each individual hoof. That's kind of a wee bit of the difference, if that helps with that explanation.
Yeah, I think so. So if we go through what you're doing in New Zealand and things like that, so what are you seeing as one of the main causes of lameness in New Zealand? Is there something that's a common link, or is it all over the place?
That's a question wouldn't say I get it daily, but definitely get asked really regular. And not trying to duck and dive, but look, there's no simple, specific answer to sum it all up. There is a big variation from farm to farm. And one of the things that I could say that could be the main cause are cow management, and that's how we look after the cows on farm. And that varies from farm to farm through farm systems. Because how we're looking after a system 1 cow is different to a system 5 cow, both positively and negatively. And the cows themselves that fit well in those systems have got their own variation on how adaptable they are to those systems.
Yeah.
So it's, a cow that needs a little bit more feeding and responds better to feeding would probably sit better in a 4 or 5 system and not in system 1. If she's underfed, she's going to have lameness problems. Then we come on, you can have people, and people are, which that includes the owners, the management, the staff, and any people that interact with the cows. The more knowledgeable those people are, the better trained, the better understanding they have on farm and how they deal with lameness, how they can identify it, and how well they're trained to try and pick up things early, how enthusiastic they are. That will help, because somebody who's turning a blind eye to things, then lameness is going to start to escalate. Your local environment will have a big impact. As an example, cows that were going lame in the spring in Southland because of real adverse wet weather is totally different to cows walking around here in the Waikato in the middle of February. It's just two different, that's a part of the environment. The biggest one that can be attributed to lameness at times, really, you could say, is nutrition, or actually a fault in nutrition will cause lameness. And this is where, how can a farmer help themselves getting good advice on the nutrition side of things should pay off, but we have to manage that in what's economic as well. Then one of the other things we have to, which is where experience comes in, is individual characteristics. That's where understanding a cow and understanding her hooves and what's unique to her, the staff farmer, whatever, if they know more, they'll be able to take better care of that animal and do whatever's appropriate for her. Whereas somebody who's maybe a little bit naive could create a bigger problem through doing something wrong.
Going a bit deeper than you should have gone, or...
There's all sorts of things, yes.
It always scares me whenever I've looked at a cow's hoof to be at the point of I know that one little swipe could make so much more damage than the issue that she had at the start. So ensuring that if you've got people on your farm that are assigned to be in charge of looking after lame feet and stuff like that, making sure they do know what they're doing is so important.
Yeah, it is. It's you take a cow she's got a value of X, and then you multiply that by the number in your herd. It doesn't take long to get them to big numbers, and when you have people then looking after that value, you want to ensure that they have some sort of basic knowledge in what they're doing. And if they don't, then maybe as a farm owner or management, you want to see if they want to upskill so they do know what to do and they understand consequences of, as you say, going too deep, making something too thin or exposed or bleeding. And then even if they do that by accident, if they've got the knowledge to know what to do to help follow up so that the cow at least is not on a downward spiral, that she can still recover. Yeah, so it's upskilling staff. If they know more about lameness, hoof care, and how to aid the cow, then they'll generally, hopefully, do a better job.
So you talked about nutrition. What is normally the signs on the hoof that nutrition is an issue?
When you come to nutrition, if you want, in a simple way of looking at it, I could take any cow and give her a diet of hay or straw, and she will grow the healthiest hooves ever. There will not be a sign of redness. She may, in time, overgrow, but she will produce the best quality of hoof. Downside to that diet is it doesn't produce a lot of milk and fat.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where your higher protein, higher energy feeds come in.
Yeah.
And I'm going to keep it quite vague because I'm not a nutritionist.
No.
Yeah. So this is where it comes in. Other times you may want to pay for good advice from independent advisors when it comes to nutrition. But basically, on the worst case scenario, I find here, say in the Waikato, is System 1 farms, grass only, in October.
Okay.
And when those cows go lame, literally lift their hooves. All the hooves are quite literally purple, not red, going on purple, because there's literally those cows are not able to grow good quality horn on that type of diet because the diet fluctuates so much.
And so that's causing bruising.
Which is what Kiwis call bruising,
Yeah.
which is essentially it's a hemorrhage coming from the inside. You want to be technical, a bruise is force come from the outside.
Yeah.
But we accept it. It's called bruising. But what's happening is that redness is blood mixing with the sole as the corium develops and grows that sole.
Yeah.
Blood doesn't have strength the way sole horn tissue does.
Mm-hmm.
The corium's getting pressed from above by the pedal bone. The corium bleeds. Blood comes through in the sole horn. There's no strength there. It then comes across as being soft.
Yeah.
Which it is. And it will lead to other issues. It can be a gateway to other things then, like sole ulcers and things like that. And this is when that sole tissue is soft. This is where you can watch your cows or heifers walking, and as some people say, it looks as if they're walking on hot coals. And quite literally, what they're doing is they're tiptoeing their way around because everything is kind of painful.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the two extremes on nutrition.
Yeah.
Whereas if you get good advice, then from that advice will be able to help you get milk in the vat and have good quality hooves.
And are you seeing, I don't know if a lot of your clients have barn systems, but I know that some of the herds that I've been into that have barn systems from classifying, you do tend to see issues with long toes and long dew claws.
Right. Barn systems. I think we have to sort of help clarify is there's different lameness issues in the different environments. So a barn is one environment and pasture grazing and long walks is a different environment. And both of them can cause, and both of them will cause, if ill-managed, lameness problems within the herd. For those farmers in those particular systems, they sort of fine-tune to whatever they're managing. And if you're seeing longer claws in a barn, then realistically, the simplest way to help is actually just have to increase their frequency of hoof trimming. Hopefully they are using a hoof trim service of some sort from someone.
Yeah.
And that one may mean they just have to increase the amount of visits per year and then those cows will be trimmed to nature, better balanced, and that should go away. Dew claws, that's actually a minor breed trait issue.
Okay.
And we see that within, let's say, it's a strain within breeds. So it doesn't come across from everything all the time. I've got herds where I don't see it at all, and then go somewhere else, and maybe 10% of them have got long dew claws.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But sometimes, you won't see it at all. Yeah, that's kind of sort of where I see all that one sitting.
Yeah. No, just said I always find it quite interesting when we're out classifying, because we're trialing traits at the moment, looking at foot angle and things like that. I feel like us as inspectors are paying a lot more attention to feet at the moment than potentially, not that we weren't looking at them before, but just you're really drilling in on it. And it was very noticeable on farms where the cows spend a lot more time in the barn, and that barn isn't just used as a feed pad, it's used as like an actual barn.
Yes.
Those cows did tend to have a lot more issues with longer toes and the dew claws thing than the farms that I've been to, where it's either primarily outside or they have a barn or a standoff pad, but they're not on it for a long period of time. Those cows, and I do agree, it could be a nutrition thing, could be too much protein or starch or something in the diet that's causing those long toes or causing them to grow faster than what they normally would. And again, it's that finding the right expert to talk to you about what you're doing and what you're seeing to make sure that you are on that front foot of what you're treating and what your cows are looking like. But it is quite interesting from my point of view when I go out and actually look at them, the differences. But I'm not picking feed up all the time or anything like that you're doing. So yeah, just always quite interesting. So I guess there's not really a main cause of lameness. As you've said, there's so many different factors that go into it. But is there a certain type of lameness that you see frequently in New Zealand, whether it be like foot rot or just stone bruising being a major issue? Or
Right, types, yeah. Look, foot rot, where basically a foreign object has broken the skin, causing an infection. That is common, and that can happen anywhere at any time. And that's quite easy to see, and because literally the cow was walking fine this morning, and now she's starting to limp more this afternoon or tomorrow. And that's actually, generally, that's the easy fix, because you literally remove the foreign object. If there's any loose sole or whatever, give that a tidy up. And dare I say it, it's basically a course of antibiotics under, whatever you've agreed with your vet for foot rot, with anti-inflammatory, and your cows are really on the road to recovery. And other things like white line and bruising, they have their peaks at different times of the season, and different time, depending on where we are in the country as well. But yeah, again, the bruising aspect comes into how well or how properly balanced the cow's diet is, really. White line, hoof shape, and the correct hoof shape, which is prevention trimming and regular trimming, can have a big influence in reducing all that. But as you say, that comes down to the more you start looking at feet, the more you start to see things. And then sometimes the more people start to understand. And once they start understanding, they actually then start to think on the prevention side of things a lot more. And they start doing the preventive stuff. They do it themselves, or they can get someone else in to help them. That's where people are starting to see, because they understand, and then they start to see more. And when they see more, they understand more.
Yeah.
Which is, it's a real positive for the whole farm system, because people are better informed. And so that does help the animals and does help, the cows.
I suppose preventative trimming is only really starting to take off in New Zealand, but overseas in the UK and Canada, it's very common over there, isn't it, to get someone in to help with preventative trimming to ensure that you're picking up those feet on a regular basis to make sure that they're fit and healthy.
Yeah. You've got preventative trimming, you've got curative trimming and whatever. But realistically, what's happening is we're lifting hooves, giving the cow the trim that she needs. And if you increase the amount of times that happens, then with the right trims, then the cows, you're going to be less responsive to a lameness event, and you're going to be more into getting on the front foot and saying, right, we just keep her in shape. It's a little bit like checking the tire pressures in your car.
Yeah.
We go out, check the tire pressure. If it needs a couple of pound of PSI, get the compressor and we do it. You've saved the tire and you can continue on driving. But if you don't do the tire pressures and you go out and you just continue to see that tire running flat, then you've got a bigger expense at the end of it.
Yeah.
New tire or whatever. But yeah, the guys overseas are hoof trimming more regular because they see that it is actually a smaller, it's an ongoing cost, but it's a smaller cost
in the long run
compared to having a lame cow. Some of the, say, the likes of the UK, some of it's actually coming from the milk processor. So for these premium milk products, or for the farmers to supply these premium contracts, then the milk processor is saying, yeah, we want you to have an independent person inspect and carry out whatever remedial work on your herd 3 times a year, 4 times a year, or whatever. Plus, they'll have other things like mobility scoring, which is realistically, it's locomotion scoring.
Yeah.
What's locomotion scoring? That's just highlighting how the cows can walk. It puts them in a score. Here in New Zealand, we do 0 to 3. Other parts of the world will do 1 to 5. But realistically, it's the same thing. It's just ranking. The highest number is the lamest cow. Lowest number is what we want are the cows that are walking perfectly well with no problems.
Yeah.
And why do the milk processors, why are they wanting that overseas? Realistically, it's because they say that's what their customer wants. They want to buy milk from animals that have the utmost
healthy cows,
healthy welfare cows and herds.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, that's what we're getting told here in New Zealand by some of our processors.
Right.
So this is where all this stuff's coming from.
I guess the difference here is a lot of our farms are a lot bigger.
Yep.
So that cost can be a lot higher in getting it done overseas in some places.
It is. And that's where, with like we here, as Kiwis, we understand that when we have to do things, because we've got a 600 cow herd or whatever, yes, that cost is going to be a lot bigger than someone with a 100 cow herd.
Yeah.
But when you start to engage with an outside contractor to come in to do something, say in this case it's hoof care, then that person or people are bringing in specialised equipment to do the job quickly, safely, with efficiency. So the cost then is actually per head is actually a lot less than if the farmer tried to do it themselves.
Yeah.
So there is wins on the other side of the story, on the other side of the coin for the farmer as well.
Yeah. So when I was at uni, one of my lecturers always put it as anything that's doing something to prevent an issue is building the fence at the top of the hill instead of waiting with the ambulance at the bottom. So I think any form of preventative measure, whether it be trimming or another method, is still a form of building a fence, trying to save yourself. And because you and I, when we did, you hosted very kindly, you and Leona, your wife, hosted us for a workshop a couple of months ago in the Waikato, and you talked a bit about other ways that you can prevent lameness or reduce lameness issues on farm that are different from actual preventative trimming. So do you want to kind of go over those examples a little bit?
Yeah, we'll take it, this time of year here in the Waikato now, people have got cows calving, springing mobs.
Yeah.
Heifers are coming in. Say we take the example of heifers calving for the first time. Those animals may have been grazing for 18 months somewhere. They haven't walked up and down a track worth. They've probably gone from big paddocks to big paddocks, being fenced or grazed, whatever way it was. And now they come back on farm and they're maybe into smaller paddocks, smaller groups, but now they're expected to calf and start to walk up and down that track twice, maybe 4 times a day. I look at it, it's a bit like pre-season training for a sports person.
Yeah.
The guys and girls that do the pre-season training get conditioned for game day. And the person that doesn't do it and comes into game day first time generally gets an injury.
Yeah.
So on farm, if we can, say likes of our heifers, if we can condition them to walking, let them get used to walking. If we can condition them to standing on concrete, which is your collecting yard, your cow shed, where they can do that without being freaked out and spooked, then we are conditioning them to grow better hoof and grow a stronger hoof. And there's hopefully less chance of lameness, or there's more chance of those heifers getting through that first lactation with little to no problems. And I think that's quite key, that we have to look at things like that, because when we don't, particularly those heifers calving down, those are the ones, if they get any problem at all, they're generally more timid, they stand back more, and then they don't get as much, they always get the second pickings of anything they eat, which takes them on a downward spiral. So then you've got other things then you have to do, such as run them in separate herds, create that extra mob so that they don't drop off too far, which can cause extra workload for the farmer further on down the line. Whereas if you had got those animals conditioned a wee bit further, you could maybe ease that workload further down the line instead. Because we want these animals to stay in the herd for as long as possible. We don't want them to not get back in calf and become an empty cull.
Longevity is important, and
very much.
Having something that can stay in the herd for a longer period of time, 5-6 years, is more cost effective for the farmer as well. So if this is a way that you can ensure that they are going to stick around longer because they're healthier and things like that, then I think that's really good. You did I thought it was amazing. I think it grossed a few people out, but you had some hooves there for us, and you had
the ones that was cut open.
Yeah.
Yep.
The in-calf heifer hoof, and then you had I think it was like a 3-year-old.
Yes.
Or rising 4-year-old. And the difference of the hoof wall and the sole and the thickness. Yep. And that was a really good example of the difference between them walking on concrete and walking up the tracks on a regular basis versus an animal that hadn't been.
Yeah. And like for the listeners, it was a 19-month-old in-calf heifer that somehow she broke her jaw at grazing and she wasn't able to eat, so we ended up we had to get her put down. But I kept the hooves off her for education. And what we're finding, the good thing about it was, because back to the different ways of hoof trimming and interpreting hooves, because she only had 3 millimeters worth of sole. It was hard, but it wasn't very deep. And then we had the other cow that had, she was a 3-year-old cow, and you could see on the wall where she was growing new, you could see where she had changed from when she had calved and then come onto the dairy platform for the first time, because there was that change in nutrition. The whole change in diet had changed the growth of that hoof wall, and you could even see then the size of the hoof had started to get bigger compared to what was the older hoof that was being grown out. And it was good to see that and to show people so they could get an understanding of how the thing changes. Yeah, I just want to be able to have that all the time when I do demos.
It's, I guess, I am, and I think a lot of farmers are visual people. It's easier for you to understand something if you can see it, and you have a really great way of explaining what you're talking about, and it just kind of emphasized it by showing that difference, because it's very clear when you're explaining it, but it does make a big difference when you can actually see how much there was actually between. I know there's 2 years between them, but just that difference of walking on concrete versus not walking on concrete, and how important things like that and introducing that into your herd at a younger age. And that's why, like, I always think it's really important. My brother does it. As soon as his animals come back from grazing, he makes sure that they run through the shed, especially if you've training them on the shed's really important.
Yep.
And it kind of just emphasizes another benefit of training them through the shed. And you're not trying to rush them through the shed.
No.
You're just getting them, one, it's a way for you to get them introduced into any meal that you feed through the shed, but it's also just getting them used to walking on the concrete, or if you've got mats. Mats in cow sheds, do you think they should be all the way through, or is having still some exposed concrete useful to ensure that actual strengthening of the foot?
Oh, rubber and cows standing on rubber.
Rubber mats.
Right. Okay.
A bit controversial. But...
No, you've lit a torch. Something that the rubber sales rep will never tell any farmer is that the more rubber you put down on concrete, yes, you're providing more of a comfortable environment for the cow to stand on, possibly lay on. But what they won't tell you, maybe because they don't want to tell you, or maybe because they don't know, is that rubber's not very abrasive. And because of that, you'll actually get an increase in hoof growth. And once you get an increase in hoof growth, the hooves will become more out of balance. And that, in turn, if nothing's done about it, will lead to lameness, because the hooves will be out of shape, overgrown, out of balance. And it doesn't matter if they're then standing knee deep in straw or on rubber, they will likely have greater incidence of hoof problems. So, yeah, I'm not against it. I don't have it at home, but yeah, there is a place for it. But the farmer needs to understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. As long as they understand and accept there's a consequence as well with it, like it's not the silver bullet to everything. Then they can go, okay, the farmer may decide, I'm putting down rubber in my collecting area or through my cow shed or out in my feed pad, whatever. But if they understand, yes, I'm going to have an increase in hoof growth, it means I'm going to have to look at hooves and trim them more myself, or I'm going to have to get the hoof trimmer to trim more. And they weigh that up and go, yeah, that's all right, they're happy with that, and then it's fine. But I have seen cows on rubber where I've done the whole herd once a year.
Oh, wow, okay.
And that's, it's part of it. In Europe, where animals run rubber a bit more, this is where the hoof trimmers are coming in and doing 4 or 5 times a year trims.
Yeah, it's like every 10 weeks or something.
Yeah, they are trimming more. And they're saying those cows are going from being maybe looked at once, sometimes twice a year, to being looked at twice, 3, sometimes 4 times a year, depending on the actual regime that they're in, getting fed. Because, the better fed cows grow more hoof.
Yeah. So I guess that's kind of what I meant, like if you're going to just put them in your cow shed, not putting it throughout the entire shed.
Yeah.
Still having some concrete that's going to create that abrasiveness.
The little amount of time cows are on concrete, there is a little bit of abrasion, but most of the abrasion they'll get is walking up and down the races.
Yeah, okay.
But what we want, for our cows and our young heifers, and when we're training in that, is we want them to stand on the concrete, interact with the concrete in a relaxed manner. We don't want them being up on their toes and skipping and sliding about all over the place, being spooked, because that will shear off millimeters of hoof, just like that.
Yeah.
And that takes weeks to regrow. Best thing I've found for farmer for rubber is actually put it in the pit where the milkers are.
I agree.
That's where I went first.
It's not time for you to be standing for 2-3 hours, just pacing backwards and forwards, swapping cups over.
Yeah.
We're in there a lot longer when I think the cows are in the end. So.
Oh, very much. But definitely the cows, when they are in the cow shed, they have to be able to grip. So like the concrete surface or whatever surface you have, it has to provide the cow with grip that she knows that it's sturdy for her. She's not going to do the splits.
I know there are farms out there when they build the new sheds and that, and I've done them because I've almost ended up arse over with the cow, and it's when they don't grate the concrete, it's almost like a driveway and it's too smooth, and the cow's doing the splits and I'm doing the splits, and those are the ones that I worry about when you've got cows on those situations, because the lameness issue could be because you put a hip out rather than it would actually be a foot issue.
Oh, yeah, it definitely is. So you have to give the cow the surface to stand on that she's confident that she can stand there and she can move. If rubber matting does that, brilliant. If you groove the concrete, brilliant.
Yeah.
But like if you've got slippery concrete, then definitely something has to be done about it. Because even if it's the cows don't slip over, if one of the farm workers slips over and breaks an arm, breaks a leg, whatever, then you've lost staff, but you could also have an ACC claim or whatever come back on you as well. So we don't want that. But grooving concrete helps. There's 2 trains of thought at the moment, you could say. Some people are going for this deep grooving, and other people are leaning towards the scrabbling, which is the really, really fine etching on top.
Oh, yeah.
Which is literally, it's just the scrabbling is like a millimeter and a half of depth.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of micro grooves, you could say.
Yeah.
I actually think on slippery concrete, that's better than the deep grooves, which is grooves that are maybe 70 to 100 centimeter squares or diamonds.
Yeah.
With a depth of maybe 8 or 10 mil.
Right. Yeah.
That deep grooving does offer a bit of grip, but you'd still have a large surface area of maybe old, shiny, slippery concrete. One I found more recently was helping a friend who just got that stuff done. It actually made yard washing longer.
Oh, okay.
Because
it traps.
cows were tracking a lot of grit on from the race, and you ended up with, you had a lot of stone, pebble in these grooves. Whereas with the scrabbling, you don't get that because you hose just across the surface area as if it was just normal smooth concrete.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my thoughts on those ones.
I just think it's something that a lot of farmers, like I would say most of your new sheds now are being built. It's something that people are actively thinking about, but there are sheds out there that were built maybe like 10, 15 years ago, and the concrete is smooth. And it's trying to think about ways that you can ensure that your cows can safely walk in and out of the shed. You know, if they do get a fright, you don't want them to go up on their toes or something and then slip over. So, and I know that some of the mats that people put in now, they wear over time. So you're one of those lucky people that lives where it gets really cold and they freeze and they can become really slippery because of that too. So there's a lot of things that farmers need to think about when they're going into that aspect of what's going to be the best step for our place, or what's the best step for our shed, where do we put mats in and how many mats should we be putting in.
And that's where it's always one of those things. It's like for farmers who's wanting to do something new or different for the first time, basically, try and find some farmers in your local area that have done something similar or have gone down the line you're thinking.
Yeah.
And then, look for ones that have gone down a slightly different line, gauge their opinion, find out what their pros and cons are. But it's really try and compare apples with apples.
Yeah.
Pardon the old saying. And find someone who has maybe had it for a little while, so they actually have a bit of time experience of using it.
Yeah, and they'll know if it actually works.
Yeah, and it's rather than someone who's just had something installed for a month and are still learning the ropes. Because, someone who's been a season or two through will generally be more honest and tell you the pros and cons.
And I know I've got members that I deal with that do it in small chunks. And so they've put in some mats, but they didn't do both sides of the herringbone. They just did one side. And they said they've got cows that will now not go up that
the other side.
So they'll all of a sudden they now always go up the open side or something like that. So they've got to be very careful of making sure that there's enough grip on those mats so that if they are having to walk up a slight hill to get into the row, they're not going to slide on it. So, and there's lots of matting companies out there. So
there are lots of matting companies, and it's really for the farmer. If you give cows a choice, they will prefer to stand on it.
Yeah.
It's like if you put a mat down the middle of the race, you'll find cows will walk down the middle of the race because it will be more comfortable.
Yeah.
So then you end up with a big herd of cows wanting to walk single file rather than walk 3 or 4 files wide going down the race. So things may take longer. But in and around your yard, as we always say, cows aren't stupid. They will go and stand and walk or be wherever things are safer or more comfortable. So farmer that the example that did one side of the cow shed, they helped themselves in one way, but maybe created a little problem on the other side. I generally, if I was approaching it in a cost-effective manner, going, okay, I haven't got the money for the whole thing all the time, but I would try and work it in across the whole breadth of my collecting yard rather than a section of it.
Yeah.
And then just work at sectors, do the next half, and then next year finish it off.
Because it can be a very costly
Yes.
procedure. So I understand a lot of people not doing it all in one.
Yeah.
And especially if you do a full season on it and you find that it hasn't changed anything in your herd, then was it value for money or were you better to do something different?
Was that problem that you identified really the true number one problem for your farm? And that's for me, again, some external advice. You might be able to get the true answer on that. So that, when you do spend your hard-earned dollars, you're going to get that return. And there even be a dollar multiplier, which is what we want.
Well, I got a little bit off track.
We do.
As always. So taking it back to your farmers here, do you think farmers are treating lameness issues swiftly enough on farm, or do you think they could be better? I guess we could always be better, but...
Yeah. Look, we've always got the magical number of, things that are ideal that everything's done immediately. And we know that practically as farms, sometimes things don't get done immediately. But realistically, I would imagine that most farmers are reacting to things pretty swiftly when they get notified or when they see stuff, because that farmer knows that cow is one of his money makers. And they know that any delay is realistically costing themselves money. And any delay then is a welfare thing to an extent as well. Our farmers, we've got the best of intention for our animals, so there's not many of them are willfully delaying anything. Look, there's going to be a couple of slackers out there. There always is in any industry, and there's not much we can really do about that easily.
Yeah.
But in large, I would say most people are doing things pretty good, pretty quick. I think, with staff, and you can, particularly new staff to your farm system, you could spend a bit of time with them and highlight what to look for, how to spot lameness sooner. Spend a few hours with them saying what you're looking for, try and explain it so they understand. So then if they identify things sooner and they've got a bit more interest and they can follow the whole procedure through, then you got a keener staff member, then things will be done even swifter again.
Right, yeah.
So it's, invested in people too.
The farm that I used to work on while I was going through uni, I used to pick up most of their lame cows, and that was because working in a herringbone, it's the easiest way to pick up lame cows because you just watch them as they walk in. As long as your cow's walking calmly and quietly, it's the easiest thing, and you can pick up, well, she's actually got a swollen foot. So there's more than just she stepped on a stone as she walked in. And I always thought that was a really great way of being able to identify those things.
People that know their cows, know their herds, when they see cows coming in, they notice animals out of sequence.
Yep.
Which is a trigger, it's an alert. Let's face it, later on in the spring, you'll be going, oh yeah, maybe she's coming on heat.
Yeah.
So you get all the positives from that.
I just thought it was a great tool. Like even when I relief milk for my brother and you see cows come in and he's always like, oh, my girls, my brown Swiss are normally, the big girl's always in the second row. And where is she today? Okay, she's made it to the fourth row, so she's not very happy today or something like that. It's quite amazing. Cows do like routine.
Yeah.
And it's the same as if you're walking them up to the shed and then all of a sudden the cow that's always at the front, or she's always the first one out the gate, she's at the back. And again, she could be on heat, or could be a lameness issue, or she could just have an upset stomach or something like that. And so it is quite interesting. And it's very beneficial for farmers to be able to actually pick up on that behaviour change and actually be like, right, something's not right here. Wonder what it could be. And if you've got the benefits of having technology, wearables or anything like that, you can notice it. You can go into your app and be like, okay, yep, so, she's definitely coming on heat. I can see that heat spiking up. But you don't want to lose that visual aspect and that actual natural ability to be able to pick out where the issues are and how to actually identify behavioural changes within your herd.
Yeah, we still need personal opinion. We still need that human eyeball who understands animal husbandry, who can pick up the sick cow when she's turning rather than being heels up. We need people then that they understand their herd. And you've got your pets in the herd and you've got the rest of your herd animals not, but seeing when things are just out of normal. It's like at home, we've got a few cows. When my wife does most of the milking, there's an order of cows coming into the cow shed. When I do the relief milking for her, she gets a lay-in. And then some of those cows, because there's a change of person in the pit, there's a different voice.
Yeah.
You get a change in order. And we've got one cow that, when she hears my voice, then the tail lifts.
Right.
Yeah, but that's what it is.
She just pictures every time that you had to pick her feet up.
No. Well, she just saves it all up for me. She aims but misses. But anyway, talking about wearables, it would be great if we can try in the future with wearables. You've got activity when they're eating, when they're ruminating and all that. And I think if we can try and work the algorithm or whatever it is that runs these data collection, if we can start to see a trend in animals being less active, because let's face it, a lame cow or that cow that's sore will probably spend less time being active, may spend a little bit more time laying down, which means she's not eating. She might be chewing her cud ruminating, but she's not actively eating. Hopefully we can sort of fine-tune those trigger points so that some of these companies can start to highlight, okay, if a cow's on heat, but also this cow might be going lame, or this cow might possibly has a locomotion or a movement issue, which again will help aid that farmer, aid the farm staff in seeing things sooner.
And lameness is so important. If she can't walk to the shed, then how are you supposed to milk her? And if she can't get up and eat,
correct,
how is she supposed to create milk?
Our cows need their hooves, and our cows need a decent leg structure under them to actually be able to walk. The cows here have got some horrendous walks to do.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not like a barn.
UK's.
It's not like a barn in North America where they have several hundred meters to walk back and forward between a cubicle sand bed and the feed bunker face.
Oh, to be honest, it could be 3 meters.
Oh,
It could be all she does.
It could be, yeah. And so it's hard to, let's face it, we could all hop that.
Yeah.
And a lot of lame-footed cows in those situations do.
Mm.
But yeah, that's where when we ask these cows to walk 2, 3, maybe even 8 kilometers, then that soon highlights who's fit to do it and who's not, which does help us find the lame cows sooner, right?
Yes. Yes, it does. We did talk about this a little bit before, but what do you recommend to farmers to ensure that when they are treating lameness issues that they are fixing it and not causing more damage?
Yeah, well, my personal opinion is, no, keep it simple. Look, if you don't know what you're doing, don't do it.
Yeah.
Because you would most likely make a bigger mistake. However, if you do know what you're doing and you've been trained by someone and you have an understanding of what to do, what the consequences are, then get onto it and deal with the animal. And for staff or employers or whatever, it's, if you're interested, then go and do that training course so you get a greater understanding. Because as said back earlier, like the cow's got a value of what, 2, 3, 4 grand, and you multiply that by 2, 3, 400 or whatever, you're not going to let your apprentice straight onto something worth $500,000 and screw things up on you.
No, thank you.
No, so it's So what you do is you find someone, or you either train someone to know more, or you get someone in who does know more. So it's either your hoof trimmer or you get your vet, and that's so you don't make things worse. And if somebody's not interested, then just steer them onto a different job.
Yeah.
And let somebody else do the job who is interested. That's the basics of it. Yeah. And then when you have somebody who is interested, then nurture them with it, and then help them with the appropriate equipment so they can do things safer. And then use the appropriate aid, which is your different hoof blocks or whatever. And so when they do the job, they can do it the best they can. It's best for the cow, and then the cow recovers fastest. There's no point, giving something that's not going to do the job, because you're just delaying that cow's recovery. And we want the cow to recover as fast as possible, so she's back producing as much as she can as soon as possible, because that's your dollars back, or your costs going out.
And I think you said it right there, providing them with the right equipment.
Yeah.
So making sure your hoof knife's nice and sharp.
Yeah. So you need, realistically, to do things safe now, you need a hoof crush.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter what brand. You buy what you can, but you need a safe hoof crush. You need decent hoof knives. And yes, a sharper hoof knife is actually safer than a blunt one. Same as the kitchen.
Yep.
If someone knows and has been trained on how to use an angle grinder and the appropriate hoof disc on the angle grinder, that makes things easier. And I've actually found people are more careful when they're working with a grinder than they are working with a knife.
I guess people take chunks off with a knife, don't they, versus with a grinder. The idea is it's a thin layer at a time.
Yeah. Well, people are actually start to understand consequence too. Because with a grinder, they're thinking, if I take too much or if I do too much, because they're thinking that, the whole hoof's going to explode. Which, hopefully it doesn't. But they are a lot more careful, which is actually what we want. Mm. But it's having the animal secured correctly so that you can be careful and you can be safe. And that's safe for the animal, but it's also safe for the operator.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants to get kicked. And nobody wants a cow that's tied up somewhere to slip over and then do more damage than what she had to start off with because she wasn't secured properly. And then it's identifying the issues, as we talked about earlier, foot rot or white line. So same if the cow's got foot rot, do the appropriate action for foot rot as agreed with the farm policy and their vets. And then it's, if anything needs a hoof block, it's just using decent hoof blocks.
Because there's so many different types of hoof blocks out there that you would recommend using a certain type. They used to be wooden, or you can get like spongier ones versus like more plastic ones.
Okay.
Not a specific brand.
Yeah, no, that's right. I'm being totally neutral here, and I know people know a little bit about my background on opinions on things, but I'll be totally non-biased. You get really soft, spongy, foamy type stuff. They're designed to last for about a week.
Right.
If you can identify the cow's got an issue that she only needs help for about a week, then that might be your go. Realistically, most of our hoof issues here take a lot longer than a week to heal or to help the animal. So then you're looking at doing those spongy things 2, 3, 4 times before the animal's recovered. That creates extra work. Maybe by the end of it, the cow will walk in and actually just hold their leg up and you can do it.
That'd be great.
Repetitive training. The other ones then are, you can get, there's various colours and shapes and sizes, but you call them shoes. Mm-hmm. They wrap around and they totally encase the whole hoof capsule. Most of those, well, you won't see many professional hoof trimmers using those, or the soft spongy ones either. And the reason you won't see them using many shoes is actually it's too difficult to fit those types of piece quickly and effectively and correctly. And also part of it is you're shaping the hoof to fit that shoe, which is wrong.
Yeah.
We want the shoe to fit that cow's hoof because that'll vary in shape and size. So it's a bit like we go into the farm store to buy a new pair of boots. We don't go in there and everything on the shelf is size 9 boots. So for the guys with size 12, they're not going to cut the big toe off to make the boot fit. They want to buy a boot that fits their size 12 feet.
Yeah.
So that's where those shoes that wrap around and capsule the whole hoof aren't that great because they're just too difficult to fit correctly. So then what's happened is we've got things that we glue onto the sole. And you've basically got 2 types. You've got softwood and you've got hardwood. Realistically, softwood's got no place in New Zealand because it wears out too quickly. It's basically in the same lines as those soft, spongy, foamy things. Hardwood, a lot of hoof trimmers are using hardwood. I have used hardwood in the past, and I used it. It was the best there was at the time. Mm-hmm. Wood's great in the aspect is it's green, it's environmentally friendly. All these buzzwords at the moment. Downside to hardwood is it doesn't wear evenly.
Right.
One of the other positives, it wears away gradually over the time of the lesion healing. The downside to wood is it doesn't wear away evenly, and that it can wear either left to right or to heel. But once it gets off square or off skew, the cow can't self-correct it. So if she had a lameness issue and she had a weak tendon or weak ligaments or weak muscles through as well, and as they strengthen and as she starts to heal and everything tightens up and strengthens up again, if that wooden block is worn off to one side, then the rest of the cow's recovery is still off kilter. And that means then you have to, as a farmer or a hoof trimmer, you have to bring the cow back in several weeks later, recheck it and re-level the wooden block or apply a new wooden block, which depend on the case. The problem with that is that costs time. That's an extra cost to the farmer on that treatment for that animal. So then we end up with another option. We've got a synthetic or plastic or rubber blocks that glue on the sole. Most of them will use the exact same glues you use with wood. And there's various designs of those, various levels of success, or some are better than others. But basically, the more solid ones are designed not to wear. So even if the cow is lame, as long as the farmer fits the block correctly for the cow, as she starts to recover and as her whole joint strengthens in the recovery, she stays true and square. And it actually means then she actually recovers better, she recovers sooner, and the need for a recheck is virtually zero. So then that means it's a lot cheaper for the farmer. Mm-hmm. And in time, those blocks will fall off because as the hoof regrows, basically where it's glued on the sole, as that grows out, it dehydrates. And that's which is, you might notice as sometimes the chalkiness on the sole of a cow.
Yeah.
Well, that's dehydrated sole, which is cow's natural way of trying to minimize her overgrowth. But as that starts to dehydrate, the adhesion then gives up and the block comes off. And depending on how well the hoof care was weeks earlier, generally the cow's block falls off and the cow she's walking as a normal member of the herd and there's no issues. So yeah, those are, again, we get sort of sidetracked off on a tangent on the recommendations part. But yeah, that's where I see my non-biased opinion on all those different products.
So you mentioned about people kind of going through these courses. Where can people find these courses in New Zealand?
Google.
Google them?
Yeah. Google's the answer to everything. Wherever you are in the country, your local vet clinic may run a lameness course at some point during the year. Realistically, a lot of them are advertising at the moment, and they're doing lameness, also calf shed preparation and calf rearing and calving and all that. They're doing one-day courses or mornings on this, that, or the other. Your vet clinics can help you on that one. And there are others around the country that are specific doing lameness stuff. I'm not sure about the unis or whatever.
I don't think currently there is anything with any of the universities. I think most of them are through the vet clinics.
Yeah, that's where probably, I'm not going to do any self-promotion. That's why we're not here. I'm not going to talk about that.
No, that's fine. So I think we've possibly covered everything that we can in a podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Stuart. That was great. As I said, you're always a wealth of knowledge when it comes to talking about lameness and learning everything that you can. And I think, as you said, farmers just need to take a little bit of initiative in what they're doing on farm, and whether it is getting in someone like yourself, there's hoof trimmers available throughout the country.
Yep.
Just, she said, Google it. Yeah, Stuart's not the only one in the Waikato because your books are normally quite full.
Look, if someone wants more help, they can either contact you, Amelia, and get my details, or they can find my details out. And look, even if you're in the South Island and someone contacts me, I'm quite happy to point you in the direction of a reputable, decent hoof trimmer, or offer advice if somebody's thinking about doing grooving or rubber mats or whatever. If someone wants to contact me, then I'm happy enough to chat in the evening times when it's a bit quieter. Or emails back and forward. That's all right.
No, Stuart is always very good. He doesn't muck around, he does get back to you. So, yeah, if you would like to get in contact with Stuart, you can contact him through us, or you can always check out his Waikato Hoof Trimming website. So if you do want to know more about it, as said, he's also part of the Hoof Trimmers Association of New Zealand, Australia. So keep an eye out for them in the future to try and make sure that farmers throughout New Zealand can have a better understanding of lameness and hoof care. Other than that, if you've got any questions about today's topic or any other topics you would like me to talk about, you can get in contact with me through our website, Facebook, or Instagram, which are all linked in our show notes as always. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Stuart, for your great knowledge. I will be back next month with a new guest and a new topic. Until then, happy farming. Bye.